Listen to them chemicals. That's how you know it's working. Hey everybody, I'm Aaron, American Buhurt with the Armored Academy of Arizona. With this week's tech tip, today we're going to be talking about hafting, specifically fiber wrapping your hafts. So you'll see a number of different hafting styles these days, everywhere from hickory hafts to ash. Usually get the ash stuff from overseas. But today, again, I'm going to be specifically talking about rattan hafting, which is super popular here in the States. It's relatively cheap, super resilient, and it just, I don't know, it lasts and lasts and lasts. And what you can do, there's some stuff that you can do to keep it lasting longer. There's some treatments that you can do, the primary of which is fiber tape, which I have over here. There's a number of different brands you can get. I have a couple that I prefer. Fiberfix used to be my favorite of the available brands. However, it's my understanding that that particular brand is now either been acquired or no longer available somehow. So you're gonna have to use what you can find. That being said, it's a pretty simple procedure. You can do this on pretty much any kind of organic hafting. It works especially well with like a rough skinless rattan. If you have a skinned rattan, it doesn't need it quite so much because the skin acts as a fiber wrap of sorts. But at least for the weapons that I make and I build and I use, I prefer a skinned variety rattan, which has gone through some tooling to remove the outer layer so you don't get those bumps and it doesn't look quite so much like a stick of bamboo. And also it helps get it to a more precise size so that it can fit in a half hole. So standard half, 1.5 inches is generally what I use. And this stuff, when you get the skinless variety, fits right up in there. Granted, there's some variation because this stuff is organic and you can't control it exactly, but you can. That's just why I prefer this stuff. So today we're going to go ahead and treat this haft. This haft is going to be for for one of my two-handed maces. It's one of my newer offerings. There's my only shameless plug for this video. So I'm not going to be doing any shaping to this. But you want to do any shaping to your haft before you do this, because once you get this on there, it's on there for good. It's on there until the haft blows up or breaks for the most part. So get your haft to the length, the shape, the cross section that you want, and then go ahead and you're going to go ahead and grab your fiber wrap of whatever brand you prefer, pair of gloves, bucket of water, and we'll get to work. Shift the angles here and you'll see how I do this. Okay, here's my setup. Again, like a lot of my videos to this point, you'll see a lot of specialized tooling. You don't need any of it. Really, you just need a way to hold your haft, your haft, your rattan, whatever it is that you're wrapping. I use my post vise. You can use a regular vise. You can use a C-clamp on your deck. You can use a buddy. You can lean it up against the wall. It does not matter. Just have this held somehow. You'll also need your fiber wrap. This is one of the kinds that I carry. Again, not going to really selflessly plug here, but you can use pretty much any of these varieties of fiber wrap and they will work just fine. And then I also like to use a pair of latex gloves, the cheapy kind from Harbor Freight work fine. This is just to keep me from getting epoxy on my hands. If you don't really care about that kind of thing, you can do this bare-handed. It doesn't really hurt anything. So, again, make sure your haft is shaped the way you want it. My setup for this is going to be a little different just because I'm wrapping this before I mount the head to this particular haft. You can do this either way. You can do it after you've mounted your head, you can do it before. You just got to make sure that when you wrap it, if you haven't put your head on there, that you leave room to mount whatever weapon head that you're going to be putting on there, be it a mace or an axe or whatever you've made. So, pretty simple. We'll go ahead and get our fiber wrap out of the bag. It's going to come somewhat sticky, somewhat resin filled, but really to get this stuff cooking super fast, you're going to come over your bucket of water. If I didn't mention you need a bucket of water, you need a bucket of water or a cup, depending on how many you do. If you do a lot of these, you want a bucket. You just soak that in there for a couple of seconds, 5 to 10 seconds is plenty. No special water, just whatever you get from your garden hose. And then I like to wrap, depending on the usage, you can go from the top down or the bottom up. In this case, since I have a mark that I'm trying to hit, I am going to wrap from the top down. So I've marked my mark where I need to kind of have this set, and then I'll set this on here. You got to work a little fast, especially if you're in a hot area like I'm in Arizona. Once it starts getting upwards of like 90 or 100 degrees out here, this stuff is so fast to cure. It's like done in a couple of minutes. So you take one full wrap around the haft, sometimes two, just to kind of anchor that on there, and then keep it taut, keep it tight, and wrap, overlapping down the haft. One of the keys to making this work really well while minimizing the amount of thickness you add is you want to make sure you overlap by about half. And for this, I recommend the like a 3-inch width tape. You can get it in like a 4, you can get it in a 2, those will both work fine. But for my style and my needs, I usually go with the 3, and that gives you a good 50-50 overlap, which essentially gives you 2 layers of fiber wrap with 1 wrap of the tape. So you'll notice as we keep going down here, you'll get a little bubbling. That's fine, that's to be expected. I just go all the way down here. And if you run out of tape, or if you run out of room, just turn it around and go back the other way. With this particular application, I am not going to do that because as this is a 2-handed mace, I have to make sure this makes weight. So I'm just going to clip it. And if you find yourself in a similar situation, you can just come and take a razor knife. Ooh, didn't see that. You can just come and take a razor knife, come to the spot where you're going to end your wrap, and just cut it. This stuff cuts super easy. Although it is fiberglass, so it is going to wreak havoc on whatever knife you're using. So if you use a nice knife that you like, not only is it going to get covered in epoxy, it's going to get dull real quick. So after you've made your wraps, go ahead and just smooth all that water back in there. The bubbles you're getting out of here are going to have a little bit of epoxy resin in them, so if you don't smooth those out, you're going to get a weird lumpy texture. Which if you're really after grip, I guess is fine, but I prefer not to, and this really helps get that epoxy, get that resin, that glue into the fibers of whatever it is that you're working. And this is the secret that makes it work real good. If you squeeze that in there, the rattan soaks up not only the water, but the resin that's in the water to some extent, and you're essentially making a organic composite. And that's another reason why I like the skinless variety versus the skin variety rattan, especially for a round haft like this, because you're exposing those plant fibers to the glue that you're going to be using, and you get a much better composite out of it. So yeah, you just do that a little bit, make sure it smooths out, enjoy a little bit of that bubbling chemical reaction ASMR, and just let it cure. This will be hard, about 10 minutes, so we'll let this sit, and I'll come back and show you the last couple of steps. Okay, we're back, and this is nominally dry. It's only been about 5 minutes, maybe a little bit more. It's still slightly tacky, but at this point, this is hard. I saved the last little bit. You can tell like this stuff is now solid. This is a solid layer on the outside of your haft, and it is ready to go. I like to wait full 24 hours before I run a new Haft. You can wait a little longer. And then I also like to take a little bit of hockey tape, self-amalgamating tape, whatever it is that you like for your grip tape, and I wrap it around the end of this tape because this is one place where it will start to unravel after a little bit. If it does end up unraveling and you don't wrap it, it's no big deal. Just take, again, a little razor knife, trim off the excess until it's flat, then wrap it afterwards. If for some reason you just can't wait to use it before you've wrapped it up. Again, I'm going to be very careful with how much I actually wrap this one because this is very close to the maximum weight for what I'm trying to build. So yeah, don't forget, this does add a pretty significant amount of weight to your axe. So if your head and your haft are already really close to your max weight for whatever category weapon it is that you're building, you kind of got to take that into consideration for when you put your wrap on. But other than that, that's it. It's pretty simple stuff, and it really will increase the lifespan of your hafting quite a long time. Again, only other thing you might have to consider is if you're bringing this to a higher level competition, overseas, international, nationals to some extent, but in the North American continent, I haven't really had a problem with running just bare wrap. Sometimes they will want you to cover this to maintain a historical look to it, so that will also add weight when you wrap the tape down, so you gotta factor that in depending on your use case. So thanks for watching. Again, this is Matt Aaron, Armored Academy of Arizona, sponsored by American Buhurt. Fight safe, everybody.